folks, how we doing? Real quick, before I get back to work here, real quick, got a little brainstorm while I was doing my little other work. A little brainstorm came to me. Yes, Lord. I was just doing my other work, and then this brainstorm hit me like a ton of bricks. Yes, it did. As you can see from my title, Negroes demand special field order 15 or land and direct IRS cash payments no later than September or no vote. Please do this for your children. I know y'all clearly recognize I'm throwing one more Hail Mary. I just had to throw one more Hail Mary. I don't preach about boycotting, so this is the last Hail Mary that y'all folks gonna get from me. This is the last one. I'm going down in flames. I am going down in flames. I'm rolling the dice, and I'm throwing that Hail Mary. I'm gonna throw that darn Hail Mary, and I hope you folks catch it. All you folks, please, for God's sake, put it on blast. Put it on your social media platforms. Tell your family members. The link is in the chat. Click on that link that I put in the chat for the 50 network groups and get as many folks in that for your state and add your name. Seeing as how I was preaching earlier about the other good folks doing this, I said, well, I'm going to have to put the actions where my mouth is, like I always preach. I don't preach anything that I don't apply to myself. I have to be a person of my word. You know, it's kind of like a bad habit now. I got to be a person of my word. I don't say nothing out my mouth if I'm not applying it to myself. So that's why I'm throwing this Hail Mary. I'm asking you, click that link that say 50 network groups and get in there, please, so we can figure out what our number count is and make this threat count. Let's make this threat count of a no vote. I wish I could have put all those other terms in the title, but you know you're only limited to a certain number of characters. I would have included the Black Americans and the melanated folks in the title, because we need all of us. We need all of us to gather that number count and make this threat count. Our kids and grandkids are depending on us, and us adults, we need a lifeline too. we certainly need a lifeline. I ain't ashamed to admit it. I am not ashamed to admit it. Each one of us adults need a lifeline also. Well, let's just try to get this done for the children and the grandkids, okay? Let's make this threat count. Let's try to force let's force these demons to deliver on our demands before this election. Let's just try to get it done. I mean, we might as well go down in flames. We ain't got too many other options. Let's go down in flames. Maybe we just may be able to apply enough pressure to get them to give up something before this election, so we can get our folks down to the South in one of those 8 states. We need a Hail Mary. We need a Hail Mary, and we need to get our folks to safety. And they just may be desperate enough to give up something. Don't y'all think? Don't y'all think they just may be desperate enough to give up something? My gut tells me they are. I don't know about anyone else, but my gut tells me they desperate enough to give up something. They just may re-implement that special field order 15. If they don't agree to that, then they just need to give out that land to So your vote has been erased past 40 years. That is what is the fact. That is the reality. Not these lying narratives that you folks are running around here telling people they have to go vote like their life depends on it because they just got to fight against this invasion. But the oligarchies own the government. They own the government. They own it. They wealth and power own the government. So your vote on the 5th of November is not going to change that. On the 6th of November is not going to change that. On the 7th of November is not going to change that. On the 8th of November is not going to change that. On the 9th of November is not going to change that. On the 10th of November is not going to change that. But what can change your fate is to demand something for your vote up front. That is what's going to change your fate. And that puts the power in your hands as an individual and as a collective. But if you're not doing that, your enemy already know that you are weak. Because any brain sense person will be making a demand. Your enemy has already evaluated you, that you simply are not even making a demand, and they know how desperately they need your vote. If they don't hear you making a demand, they already have made an evaluation that you are weak. Because common sense tells them those Negroes and melanated persons should be making a demand for their vote, and not it depending on immigration. That's the America's problem, that they have used as a weapon to harm you. You don't fight against your enemy with the weapon that they use to harm you. You don't help them with their problem from the weapon they use to harm you. No, you step back and regroup and figure out what is your power position. What is that power position that you hold? If you don't have enough brain cells to figure that out, then don't do harm to your community and yourself. Don't take the liberty to do harm to your community by telling your community to go vote for the lesser of two evils, because that is a cop-out. That is a cop-out, and it's a false narrative. It's a false narrative that has need to be put to rest. It needs to be buried. It has been the narrative for the past 50 years. The past 50 years. So it has been in existence long enough. It's time out for it to be put to rest. It needs to be buried forever and ever. So you sorry human beings who are running around here asking folks to vote for the lesser of two evils, you are compromised. You are compromised, and no one should listen to anything coming out your mouth. Because if you are not demanding land and cash before your vote, then you are compromised. If you don't have a strategy of how you're going to tear down the oligarchy, then you are lying to yourself and your people. If you're not explaining how you plan to tear down the oligarchy, the banks and the corporations and the Black Rocks and the Rockefellers and the cartels, if you don't have a strategy of how you are going to tear down that system of 40 years, if you don't have a plan or a strategy of how you plan to tear that down piece by piece that has been in existence for 40 years, that has erased your vote for 40 years, then you are lying to yourself and you are lying to your people. And time will tell. My faith is in the Heavenly Father, not in any of you lying human beings. I don't think all the praying in the world is going to get persons in the ghetto, in the projects, in the hood to come out to vote. 80 million stayed home in 2020. I estimate that about 160 million will stay home in 2024. Unless they get some land and some cash, and they'll be able to evaluate for themselves whether their life, day-to-day life has changed and that they can be motivated to go vote. If that doesn't happen, y'all corrupt human beings are going to keep on doing your evil deeds. You folks are going to keep on fighting each other. You are going to keep right on fighting each other. That's what you're going to do. You're just going to keep right on fighting each other. And while you're fighting each other, you're going to be cutting those government programs. You're going to be cutting those government programs and making sure that you protect the corporations and the bank. And you're going to make sure they keep on getting bailouts and keep on getting social welfare and keep on getting subsidized favoritism. You're going to make sure that all of that stays in place. I have already posted the links in the, oh my gosh, let me see. Yeah, when I set up this broadcast, I put in the description all the links that you need to click on to learn about the truth. Just click on each of those links and go spend a little bit of time reading about how the Republicans and the Democrats are cutting government programs effectively, immediately, as quickly as they can put them into effect. So by the time you folks are done crying for these Republicans and Democrats, many persons in the Negro community and the melanated community are going to have died, because a human being dies when they cannot buy food and they cannot pay for a roof over their head. They cannot get a job. They are going to die. While y'all are busy fighting each other, they are going to die. Because I'm sure each one of you folks who are running around here caping for these Republicans and Democrats, you have a refrigerator full of food. You have a comfortable roof over your head. Yes, you do, don't you? You are sporting your nice shoes and nice clothes and outfits and your nice cars and your nice houses, and you're talking about your nonprofit organizations, and you're talking about your government contracts, and you're talking about your business or whatever that you got going on, but your life is not feeling the pain the same way those persons who are in the 50% bracket, 40% bracket, 30% bracket, 20% bracket, 10% bracket. Your life is not feeling the pain of those persons who are working poor. They work 2 jobs, but they're still poor and a low income. So if you folks have any compassion or decency, I want you to go year by year for the past 40 years. Go year by year and do your research for the past 40 years and get a sheet of paper or a notepad and have a column for the low income and a column for the elite and the wealthy, those who are above 50%, and dots of who has received the most welfare from the government. I want you to identify what amount of money that each one of those columns have received for the past 40 years. And I'm willing to bet my life on it that the column that has the elite and the wealthy, they will out total the ones in the column for the low income. I'm willing to bet my life on it. While y'all running around here crying for these Republicans and Democrats, they are busy cutting the government programs, and they just had a vote. I think it was in September, or it might have been more recent. I think it was September of 2023. We are just in February of 2024. So if you go do your research, you can read all the facts for yourself. But in case you don't plan to read all the facts, I intend to do some broadcasts on it. I most certainly do. I intend to do some broadcasts on each one of those government cuts, and especially the one where the the wealthy and the elite, those in the bracket above 50%, who is getting ready to get a $3.1 trillion reward, while the folks in the low income are going to suffer cuts. These evil human beings made sure to pay the wealthy and the elites $3.1 trillion. I mean, what would have hurt if they just would have paid them $1.1 trillion and left some money over there in the column for the low income? What would have been wrong with that? What harm would that have done? They still would have got a little bit more extra money. They still would have got a little bit more extra money. They didn't need the whole $3-point-something trillion, while all of these other government programs are being cut. So I'm going to close with this. I'm going to close with this because I have to go run my errands. And when I come back from running my errands, I am more than likely going to do another broadcast. I'm going to probably have to do another one today. But in closing, any person who is telling you to go vote, any person who, like Phenon in the Caucasian space, the sorry human being who says that I don't want my kids to be birthed into debt, the sorry human being who said reparations is welfare, that is a lying narrative. So the next time they say it out their mouth, just remind them that each one of them that has come to America after 1865, they have been receiving welfare. Each one of them. Just so we have a story straight. Every single immigrant that got here after 1865 has been receiving welfare. Every one of them have been receiving welfare, including every Caucasian American, because I do not call these sorry human beings WHITE. I have abolished that word. That was the purpose of this broadcast, to let it be known that this sorry human being by the name of April Showers was trying to steal message. I had to send her a clear message that, see how faith works? I just happened to pop into the room at the perfect time to hear you stealing my message. April Shower. I happened to pop in there at just the right time to hear you stealing my message. So I stopped in my tracks and made a broadcast, because you and Mark King Carter, he stole some of my message. I heard him in the past few weeks, along with Coach, and along with Black Chicago for Trump, Miss Gazelle. It's so many of you, I can't name all of you folks. You think I don't recognize my own narrative, my own message, my own talking point? Do y'all really think I'm senile, that I cannot recognize my own talking points? I mean, I was the originator of the message. So I kind of, to recognize my own original message is quite simple. But in closing, the next sorry human being that tell you to go vote and not get something for your vote up front, they are compromised. Each one of them are compromised. If they're not asking you to demand land and cash for your vote, then they are compromised, because that debt is owed to the Negro descendants for their Negro ancestors' justice claim. That is the only priority that any human being who is a Negro or melanated person should be thinking about. That's the only priority, because if you get that land and that cash, you're not going to have to lose any sleep over immigration anymore. You're not going to have to lose any sleep over redlining. You're not going to have to lose any sleep if you don't get a government contract. You're not going to have to lose any sleep over getting turned down for a loan. You're not going to have to lose any sleep about sending your kids to their public schools. So if these sorry human beings are not demanding those two things, now you can always change your mind the day before the last voting day, but your clear message should clearly be, I want these two demands if you want my vote. That's a fair transaction. That's a fair fair transaction. Don't want to deliver that, then you'll know where you stand. You won't have to guess. You won't have to make an assumption. You won't have to pray that they do something for you. You won't have to pray. You won't have to march. You won't have to protest. You will know clearly, crystal clear, where you stand. And you can take your pennies and nickels and dimes and put them in a cookie jar and buy land. And you can invest in your own self, in your community, to create jobs for your own community. Excuse me. And Miss Fionn, she should be famous for her saying, we need to cut the government. We need less government in our business. We need less government in our business. But when you hear them say those words, that's a code word. That's a code word for they want to make sure that the folks in the bottom 50%, they get all those government programs get cut for those persons who need that safety net. They're not talking about cutting the government military. They're not talking about cutting the banks and the corporations' social welfare. They're not talking about cutting the banks and the corporations' bailouts. They're not talking about cutting the banks and the corporations subsidize. They're not talking about any of that when they sitting in these Twitter spaces and on these social media platforms saying we need small government, we need the government out of our business. Talking about that, they're using a code word. They want your demise. That is what they're talking about. If you happen to be in the 50% in the 50% bracket, anything below the 50% bracket, that's the code word for your demise. They can't say it they can't really tell you in clear language, so they have to use these code words. The code word is that we need less government. We need to make sure the government is out of our affairs. While they're getting tax cuts, the one that Trump gave them from 35% down to 21%, and the bailouts that Obama gave to the banks and the corporations, I think it was the banks and the corporation, they're not talking about those folks when they're telling you that they want smaller government. No, they're not talking about that. They're talking about your demise. The demise, they want your demise like the one they just passed recently, either in September of 2023 or more recently. It was a vote in the Congress by the Republicans and the Democrats to cut 30% of government programs. And they also cut the government programs back in 2017 or 2018. They really wanted to cut the government programs at that time at 38%. They always chipping away at these government programs. They did a cut of 16 to 18% back in 2017, 2018. So those cuts have already taken effect, just so you don't, if you didn't know. Those persons in the Negro and the melanated community are already suffering for the past 6 months, year or more. They have already started feeling the pain of those 16 to 18% cuts. But now the Republicans and the Democrats didn't feel like that was good enough. They made a little cry, said we had to pass this bill because we didn't want the government to shut down. So we just had to vote on it. We just had to pass it. So they went home and slept like a baby after making 30% cuts to government programs. They went home and slept like a baby. That's what they did. So I intend to put them on blast. I intend to put them on blast. And if you look at my room title in the Twitter hallway, the one that will stay up when I go run my errands, the folks in North Carolina, they seem to be waking up. They have started a poor people's campaign. Go search for it on Google. These folks are mad, and they make up the largest voting electorate. So if those persons decide to re-engage, it's going to not look pretty. It is not going to look pretty. Shout out to my home state, North Carolina. I know we cut from the right cloth. It's not ironic. I am the way I am. I'm born and breeded for North Carolina. That's the type of air that we breathe growing up from birth. But we believe in speaking our mind. We believe in standing up for things that we believe in and we're willing to fight and die for. We ain't like you sorry, weak backbone persons who cape for the wealthy and the elite, those in the bracket that's above 50%. You don't care about those minimum wage workers. You don't care about those low income persons. You don't care about those working poor persons who work two jobs and are still poor. No, you don't care about them. All you care about is you get your tax cuts and that you get your candidate elected. This is not rocket science. This should have been figured out decades ago. Honest persons should have been given the opportunity to figure this out a long time ago. A fair way to make the tax cuts fair across the board for everyone. That's not hard to figure out. I could figure that out myself, and I'm not the smartest person. I know good enough. I can figure that out because I have always understood I'm a problem solver. At least that's what I have devoted my life to, understanding that whenever I got a problem, okay, I can identify the problem and then what's the solution. That's my thought process. I'm not tearing. I'm not dragging my feet. The first time that I identify that I have a problem, the next thought that I'm formulating is, Auckland, what is the solution for your problem? So all these intelligent folks who got these college degrees, who have common sense, they know good and darn well that this should have been figured out a long time ago. It should have been figured out a long time ago. But you know what prevented that? Greed, evil, and corruption. That's what prevented it from being figured out. Because of greed, evil, and corruption. That's why it didn't get figured out. So now, who is paying the price? The low income. Those who make minimum wage, they paying the price. They are having to pay the price. While the oligarchies get away with murder for 40 years, they are having to pay the price. While the wealthy banks and corporations get away with murder for the past 40 years, they have gotten away with murder for the past 40 years. And I accept my part of the responsibility because I lied to myself for 30 years. I lied to other persons for 30 years when I told them out my mouth they should go vote. I can own up to that. I can accept accountability for that. Auckland, you can accept accountability for every time you encourage another person to go vote in this corrupt system. Auckland, you have a responsibility to take accountability for telling another person to go vote in this corrupt system because you were not educated enough to know that you were participating in a corrupt system. I can admit that to myself, and I have to have that on my conscience for the rest of my days. But I don't have to keep lying to myself. I don't have to keep lying to other persons. That I don't have to do. I can accept accountability for 30 years of lying to myself and to anyone else that I encourage to go vote. I can do that. I can do that with a clear conscience. And that is what I intend to do. That is what I do. So y'all folks, enjoy your day. Keep safe and out of harm's way. I shall return. Take it easy. Okay, folks. This is Who Did You Boycott Tonight? Who did you boycott today? It's late at night. I should not be doing a broadcast, but I happened to check my DM messages when I finished doing what I was doing in the kitchen, and I got a DM message from Atara saying that she had opened a Twitter space, and I clicked on it, and I listened to the 51 minutes Twitter space where Atara and Tamara was in there making it very clear that they are not mentioning my name, but throwing out innuendos, assumptions about my character when they are making statements that they have done all these screenshots of me harassing them. Well, Atara made the statement that I have been harassing her since 2023, July of 2023. So I want her to post those screenshots because my memory is a little over 6 months, maybe. Let me go back in my thoughts here. I believe it's somewhere around a little over 6 months. I hit the year and a half mark on Twitter in November, 2023. We are getting ready to hit November of 2024. So I really don't see how it's possible that I could have been harassing Atara for a year. My response to Atara was when I went into a room one night. It was kind of late at night. I was up late working on my computer, and I was just wanting to pop into a space and listen to the conversation and engage if necessary. So when I clicked on the title, I can't remember the room title. It was not more than 6 of us in that room that night. Me, myself, Atara, and 50. I can't remember the other 3 persons that were in that room that night. I did not enter that room to cause any friction or disagreement. I raised my hand and came on stage, and I remember stating that I identify as Negro. After I finished talking, Atara kept coming off of her mic saying, "Black American, Black American, Black American." For the second time, I came off of my microphone and politely asked Atara to stop calling me Black American. And she refused to do that. Whatever her reason was to keep on making it the statement that I am Black American when I politely asked you to identify me as Negro. I came off of that microphone only twice that night. I didn't spend more than maybe 10 or 15 minutes in that space that night. Once I had the exchange with 50 and Atara, not being happy that I wanted to identify as Negro, I only came off of my microphone twice, and then I showed myself to the exit. I did not stay in there and go back and forth with them in an argument. I will repeat again. I only came off of my microphone twice in response. The first time I came off of my microphone, I was just making a comment on the stage about whatever was being discussed at that time. After I made that first comment, Tara took upon herself to come off of her microphone and tell me that I'm Black American. And I say again, I politely asked this lady to stop calling me Black American. So all these months later, she's pretending like she don't remember disrespecting me. She's ran around here on these public apps making a statement in public that I'm a liar, that she did not disrespect me. But I am the one that's harassing her, because I am giving her a public response because she made a statement publicly about my name. She said it on a public app. Now, if she had made that statement in my DMs and said, well, who did you boycott today? I have never disrespected you. Then I would have responded to her in the DMs that, yes, Atara, you did disrespect me. And you are claiming that you don't remember, but it hasn't really been that long ago. But I have made that very clear to her every time I have put her name in my title. Every time that I put her name in my title, which has not been more than, let's see, more recently, I ran it about 4 or 5 times straight. But before then, I'm sure it was less than 5 times. But just recently, I put it back to back, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour, 1 hour with her name in the title. And I made that room with her name in the title because Tara and Pan-African persons, they open Twitter spaces and they make comments in public label persons anti-black and white supremacy and KKK and causing division and causing separation. They can get on a public app and talk as negatively as they want about delineation and reparations, and they don't cry about getting on a public app and talking negatively for well over a year, since we're talking about a year mark. So well over a year, Tara and Pan-Africa persons will be in the Pan-Africa space. They get up and open a Twitter space anytime they feel like it and paint lying narratives about why persons are fighting for delineation and reparation, but they don't have any problem doing that. But then they're going to take the liberty and cry because someone responded to them publicly. They have the audacity to complain and cry when someone responds to them publicly. Well, they got on a public app and talked negatively about a person being labeled anti-black because they don't agree with Pan-African, that a person is anti-black because they don't agree with black flatness. They are anti-black because a person don't believe in all immigrants that come to America should be able to identify as Black American. Excuse me. When a person comes from another nation, if they come from Jamaica, they should be Jamaican American when they land on this landmass. But since America is evil and they want to harm a Pacific group, they allow any person coming from Jamaica, Haiti, Bahamas, the continent, Ethiopia, Ethiopian, Nigerian, and all these brown nations to land in America and identify as Black American and African American. Now, how did that make sense? How is that fair? So if those individual persons want to get on a public app and voice their anger at their government because they want to allow anyone coming from any of these brown nations to identify the same way as those persons who have that identity. They don't have any other identity. They don't get to choose to be Jamaican. They don't get to choose to be Nigerians. They don't get to choose to be Haitian. They only have one identity that America has stamped on them, which don't mean a recognized ethnicity, because a person cannot belong to a black racial group in Africa and have a birthright. But these individuals who come from Jamaica, Haitian, and the Bahamas are okay with America harming Negroes and Black Americans, descendants of Negroes, and freedmen, and FBA, and ADOS by checking that box. They okay with America harming those specific groups by allowing them to identify the same way. They are okay with that. And because those persons in those specific groups understand they have been harmed by their country for 54 years, we're just going to count the past 54 years that America has allowed each one of those persons coming from those nations to check the same box. So those specific groups who have already been harmed by slavery, have already been harmed for the last 150 years, now they got to fight over crumbs with other immigrants that have the same skin color. They have to fight over the same resources because America allows those individuals to check the same box. But a Tara and Pan-African person who choose to get on a public app and defend immigration, they don't have any problem painting negative narratives about those persons fighting their country for delineation. They don't have any problem getting on a public app and painting a negative narrative about those persons wanting to fight for reparations. So they get on a public app and paint a lying narrative that those persons who want to fight their country for delineation, who want to fight their country for reparations, they have the liberty to get on a public app and say, why are you doing that? Why are you causing division? Why are you causing separation? Why are you causing all this friction? Is reparations worth you causing all this division and don't want to be black flatness? How dare you? How dare you get on a public app and fight for your ancestors' harm of reparations and restitution? How dare you fight for your birthright for delineation? How dare you? You are going to be labeled anti-black. You are going to be labeled everything in the book that they want to say out of their mouth publicly. Then those same persons will get on a public app and cry when they get a public response. Because I have never went out my way to attack anyone. Anytime I have put a person's name in my title, it's been because they disrespected me. And I have the recordings. I have the recordings of how individuals spent more than 2.5 hours in a space character assassinating me. I have the recording. I saved it for my proof. When Disruptor disrespected me in his Twitter space, I put him in my title because he took the liberty to disrespect me in public. So I took the liberty to respond to him in public. I took the liberty to put Heartbreaker D name in my title, and persons like him who defend immigration because they took the liberty to defend immigration publicly. So I took the liberty to respond to them publicly. If they have the right to get on a public app and paint a lying narrative for Negroes and Black American descendants of Negroes and freemen and ADOS and FBA to be against immigration, then I have a right to defend my well-being in my country every single day that I live. So if you do not want a public response, then don't make a public statement. If you do not want the persons who are going to be harmed by your statement, then don't get on a public app and make public comments that are harmful. It's no secret that America's #1 weapon has been immigration. My ancestors were murdered just trying to get a job because immigrants wanted those jobs, and America brought them to America to get those jobs. So when those immigrants got to America and those Negroes wanted those jobs, they had to die. They had to be drugged to the streets. They had to be hung and burnt. Their body parts had to be cut off because they wanted a job so they could put a roof over their head and food in their stomach and clothes on their back. Well, you immigrants were not here when that was taking place. But now you got the freedom to be on a public app and talk negatively and paint a negative lying narrative because persons don't want immigration to keep harming them. You feel that you have the right, after all of us have witnessed this invasion, but this invasion has been happening since immigration policy was passed into law. Just in the past over 3 years, it has escalated. And it makes no sense for any brown skin or dark brown skin person to be defending immigration because America used their power to cause destruction in your nation. America caused destruction in Jamaica, so those persons had to immigrate to America. They had to pack their suitcase and come to another country because America caused destruction in their nation, and they had to immigrate. They had to immigrate to America and other nations and other countries. So why in God's name would any brown skin, dark brown skin person be on a public app defending immigration unless you are benefiting from it? And a lot of you know you have been benefiting because America allowed you to check that box. You know clearly, as long as you have common sense, you know clearly that you have been checking that box for well over 50 years. When you go to a college and apply for a job, a college, and those applications get reviewed, immigrants with brown skin and dark brown skin are taking spots that should be going to descendants of Negro ancestors. And persons know this information, but they deny it. They say it's not happening. Well, There's clear, undisputed